Hey, this is Pastor Bunjee Garrett, and I want to take some time today to present you with another word of encouragement. Well, I want to begin by addressing the irrational contradictions being expressed by those who are angry after getting fired for celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You might not know this, but there's a growing list of people who have now been suspended for celebrating this murder on their social media platforms. Many others have been fired from their jobs after concerned conservatives contacted their employers regarding their unhinged posts. For example, it's in Tennessee. That's where we find Middle Tennessee State University firing its assistant dean after learning about the disrespectful post that she shared on Facebook regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination. Then there's Army Colonel Scott Stevens, who was suspended after he publicly shared his opinion on Facebook. And according to Stevens, Kirk was spreading a message of hate, racism, homophobia, misogyny, and transphobia on college campuses. And not only that, but Stevens went on to insist that Kirk was simply the victim of the same political violence that he was inciting, and this claim despite the fact that Charlie Kirk always encouraged open dialogue while speaking out against political violence. Thankfully, Army Colonel Scott Stevens has now been suspended. Several American airline pilots have also been removed from service after openly celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And listen, not only did American Airlines immediately ground those pilots, but our Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, he also weighed in on X, and he did this by assuring us that those pilots who celebrated Kirk's assassination, they've been removed from service. Then there's the public school teacher in Toronto, Canada, who allegedly forced her elementary students to watch the graphic Charlie Kirk assassination video over and over again, all the while telling the children that Kirk deserved to be murdered. According to the report from the Toronto Sun, this teacher has been reportedly suspended. Well, then there's the Oxford Union's president-elect, who's now facing disciplinary proceedings after celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk online. And listen, this is just a scratch on the surface of this growing list of people who have been suspended or fired for celebrating the assassination of Kirk. As a matter of fact, there is a new website which is dedicated to exposing those who are actively promoting or glorifying this political violence that took place last Wednesday in Utah. The website can be found at charliesmurderers.com. And this is a data aggregator of publicly available information which is designed to hold leftists accountable for their violent rhetoric following the murder of Kirk. At this point in time, the website is offline, and for reasons that I don't really understand, but it's possible that this website was taken down by the server, or maybe it's the work of hackers who are concerned about the public backlash that has caused many leftists to lose their jobs. It's also possible that the website crashed after the volume of user requests exceeded the server's processing capacity, and within a matter of days, this website had already received close to 60,000 submissions. Here's how the website's founders put it in a post from yesterday, and I quote them here. We're now at well over 50,000 confirmed identities and nearing 60,000. Keep pushing. This doesn't even include all your DMs and comments, which we'll get to soon. That's right, as of yesterday, the charliesmurderers.com website had already received 60,000 submissions, and that doesn't even include the direct messages and the comments. And while the founders of this website insist that they're just collecting and archiving instances of individuals promoting and glorifying political violence, there are those who insist that this website is really just designed to dox these people who are simply exercising their First Amendment rights. With that being the case, we should take some time to consider the irony espoused by those who insist that they should be able to exercise their First Amendment right regarding the assassination of Charlie Kirk without any consequences of getting doxxed or getting fired. Now, just to be clear, the First Amendment of our nation's Constitution is stated in this way: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay, so according to our First Amendment, every American citizen has the constitutional right to exercise our freedom of speech. And while this is a right that our government officials have sworn to protect, listen, this does not protect you at your job, in the private sector. Here's how Judy Malman explains this in her article titled, "Does the First Amendment apply to my private employer?" It's in this article where Melman declares this, and I quote, "Private sector employees do not have the same First Amendment protections when they work in private employment as their public sector counterparts. For example, your boss is not required to allow you to say whatever you want and may restrict you. It comes down to this: you have constitutional rights and can't be thrown in jail for peaceful protest or an unpopular statement, but those actions can result in an adverse employment action." More simply put, your First Amendment right does not protect you from getting fired. If you jump online and you say things that your employer takes issue with, you can get fired. And listen, this hasn't stopped many people from crashing out on social media after getting fired for their celebration of last Wednesday's assassination. For example, there's one guy who decided to share his freedom of speech defense after getting fired from his job by declaring this, and I quote him here, "This is a sad world that we're living in. I made some stupid comments about Charlie Kirk on the day when he was shot. I said some things on Blue Sky and on Threads that I'm not sorry for, but I said them and I deleted them when it was requested that I do so by my employer. And then today, on a weekend, I am told that I am no longer employed at Microsoft. After 6 years building the diversity, equity, and inclusion department from scratch, I lose my job because one of you, some random person, reports my posts to my employer, goes out of their way to find out where I work, and takes my job, takes my security away from me for a thought, for an opinion. And you talk about freedom of speech like you care about it." Listen, this guy, who apparently spent 6 years building the diversity, equity, and inclusion department at Microsoft, because, according to him, he lost his job. Why? Not because of anything that he said, but because some random person decided to share his post that he created with his employer. Listen, in response, his boss decided that it's time to terminate this guy's employment. And if I had to guess why, well, it's because the people who celebrated last Wednesday's assassination apparently don't see any problem using their freedom of speech to encourage political violence. Now, I don't know about you. I personally wouldn't want to share an office space with a person who celebrates the murder of an innocent man. Not only that, but we should also consider the irrational contradiction shared by those who insist that they shouldn't have to suffer any consequences after exercising their First Amendment right. Why should they experience any consequences for saying things? All the while celebrating the murder of a man who was just exercising his First Amendment rights. Listen, Charlie Kirk was a man who was simply exercising his First Amendment right as he spoke on college campuses all across our country, and he never once called for political violence of any kind, but rather he encouraged open dialogue amongst those who disagreed with his opinions. As a result, he was shot. He was killed in cold blood for exercising his freedom of speech. And now that people are getting fired for celebrating this horrific assassination on social media, they can't seem to see the irony of their protest. With that being the case, please allow me to sum it up simply. If you think that it's unjust to fire a person for exercising their freedom of speech, well, then it's most certainly wrong to murder a person for exercising their freedom of speech. If it's wrong to terminate the employment of a person for publicly sharing their opinions, then it is most definitely wrong to terminate the life of an individual for publicly sharing their opinions. Sadly, there are many who can't seem to make sense of this. They can't seem to see that they've embraced an irrational point of view. And in order to understand the spiritual reason for their perspective, I want to consider how Paul describes the mind of the unbeliever. Here's how he explains it in Ephesians chapter 4. Beginning at verse 18, he refers to the futility of the mind of those whose understanding has been darkened, being alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who, being past feeling, have given themselves over to lewdness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. Listen, those who are walking in the futility of the fallen mind, they've been blinded by their depraved desires, and therefore they can't think completely rationally about things. And it's for this reason that those who have seared their conscience as with a hot iron of sin, they're led to celebrate the assassination of a Christian like Charlie Kirk. And with that being the case, we should be praying for the Kirk family, most certainly, but we should also pray for our nation. We need to pray for our nation, which is clearly coming unhinged as more and more people seem to be given over to lewdness, to work all kinds of uncleanness according to the greediness found in their hearts. And knowing that the gate of hell cannot prevail against the church, I encourage every born-again believer to look for every opportunity to preach the gospel message of our Messiah, Jesus Christ. And as we go out and preach the gospel message of Jesus Christ, by the power of the Holy Spirit, we will fight the good fight of faith, and all for the glory of God.